Broadcasting.
Blog Talk USA. Are you tired of waiting for change?
1012, and it gives me 1,250 feet.
Announced the arrival of their flight from Los Angeles and Chicago.
Explosion.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to get through this thing called life. Oh no, let's go! Don't lie. The world we're living in. Take a look around. At least you got friends. So come on, lady. Oh, friendly world. Picked up the phone, dropped it on the floor. That's all I heard. How we gonna let the elevator break down? Oh no, let's go. Let's go crazy. Let's get numb. Slip from the purple middle to we have to hit each other. Come on, baby. Are y'all ready to get nuts tonight? Let me hear you scream.
Yes, welcome to the Friday, April 22nd edition of TNZ Talk as the world mourns the loss of Prince, who died unexpectedly yesterday at the age of 57. And really don't have a lot of details to share. I'm Tony Trupiano, the T in TNZ. The Z, of course, Richard Zombek joins me now. And Z, certainly whether you're a fan of Prince's music or not, you understand the iconic stamp he left on popular music over the last, get a load of this, because it's just amazing, 40 years.
Wow, yeah, and also there was something I heard today too, is like 16 albums since 2000.
Which is amazing.
Yeah, well, Sheriff Joe Arpaio had weighed in on that racist piece of crap. He weighed in on Prince dying and basically used it to self-promote his prison system.
Do you want to share how? I didn't. I saw you posted it, but you just posted it. So can you share how he made that correlation?
Yeah, well, Raw Story had a piece up this morning, and it said Prince died, and Sheriff Joe Arpaio had to be an a-hole about it. They spelled it out, obviously. What he tweeted. Somehow he knows how to tweet. He said, condolences to family of Prince who allegedly died of overdose, which isn't really anywhere near accurate. Just celebrated 20 years of drug rehab in my jail. Drugs destroying our nation. He then deleted that and put this up in place. Condolences to Prince family. He allegedly was treated for a drug overdose days ago. I celebrated 20 years of drug rehab in my jails today. Then another tweet, drugs are killing our nation. Some of the responses he got were, you run a concentration camp, you monstrous piece of garbage. I hope Mexico conquers Phoenix. You need to be buried up to your ears in septic tank and peed on forever, you awful piece of garbage. Way to insert yourself into something that has nothing to do with you, you grandstanding sociopath.
You made your point. You made your point.
You
made your point.
It goes on. I wasn't going to read them all.
That's all right. It's not about Sheriff Joe anyway. It's about Prince. I'm sure there are others that have been disgustingly out there. I'm surprised Donald Trump hasn't.
Actually, Tony, the whole thing about this article too, and what they said was that people were, aside from this guy, and maybe a handful of others, people in this case have been amazingly well behaved, and that there wasn't really a lot of vitriol going on with this, and that was kind of the basis of this story, is that one piece of garbage came out and it stood out to a lot of people because not very many people were out there making crappy comments about Prince's death. This is pretty much something that affected a lot of people, and they've been, for the most part, very respectful, with the exception possibly of Sheriff Joe Arpaio.
Well, and there have been some great Twitter tributes where you only have 140 characters to do it, and I'm always astounded because I have trouble with the 140 character thing, to be honest with you. I'm always astounded when people do well with that. I think my favorite one, I think it was Justin Timberlake, that tweeted, "Now we know what it sounds like when doves cry." And certainly he'll be missed. There were landmarks all over the country, by the way, that lit their buildings once dusk came yesterday in the color purple, from San Francisco to New York and lots of places in between. And I got a kick out of this in the best way. The city of Minneapolis on Sunday for 30 minutes has quite a, the state capitol has quite a bell system attached to it that they don't use very often. And they are going to do 30 minutes of Prince music using the bells that are in the towers there.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And Niagara Falls is lit up, too.
Right. And, President Obama gave a couple tributes to Prince as well. And, as you and I talked yesterday, we do know that he was treated for flu last week, or flu-like symptoms. And I did not know that the plane that he was on, the tour plane that he was on, actually had to make an emergency landing in Illinois in order to get him medical treatment. He felt so bad. But the last concert he did was just last Thursday.
Yeah, and it was actually the day after he was seen by a doctor.
Right. Did 3.5 hours. Which is just astounding. I mean, that's just astounding. And he was at the Fox Theater in Atlanta for his last show. The last time he was in Detroit was about a year ago this month, actually. And he played the Fox Theater in Detroit for almost 4 hours, just under 4 hours, with no break. And this is an amazing man. By the way, his first 2 albums, for those that want a little trivia, he played every single instrument and produced those albums, much to the chagrin of Warner Brothers Records, who thought they made the biggest mistake in the world by signing him. They were wrong.
Yeah, he plays something like 26. He played like 26 or 27 different instruments. Everything but horn, I think.
Yeah. So, and he couldn't read music. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I find that fascinating. I know that I watched an interview this morning that Matt Lauer did with him back 2004, maybe 2006. And he was talking about Beyonce, how he took her aside and taught her some musical scales, and stop and think about the profundity of that. Anyway, we'll have, of course, more information as we come back on Monday. They're doing an autopsy today. I'm going to guess that it's going to be heart-related, and that's just my guess, see.
That might be a good guess. I'm still, I just don't get the assumption that it was, drug related. So, Sheriff whatever
Arpaio
can kiss my lily white behind.
Well, now we know that you're a white man. If we didn't know that before, we do now.
It was hard to tell from my sexy baritone voice, wasn't it? I'm the love master love. Remember that guy, Craig Shoemaker?
Okay. You know what? Don't put your shoulder out of joint patting yourself on the back there, Pally. That's all. We've never heard you sing. Do you want to sing for us today?
Absolutely. I don't think anyone wants me to sing.
Okay. I'll take your word for it. Anyway, here we are, another Friday, and the month of April is flying by, which is, I guess, in a way, if you're somebody that lives in a four-season state, is a good thing. We've had such mixed weather here, very warm and then very cool, bordering on cold. And the last couple days here in the Detroit area, it has been raining and chilly and ugly. It's supposed to be a nicer weekend. When I was talking to you on the phone yesterday, I heard the birds chirping in the background. So I'll assume that they're happy, which means the weather must be okay.
No, it's gray and crap. We happen to have a lot of birds in our yard. And I think this month we've seen every four seasons in a week.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if they say this in Massachusetts, but in Michigan, the classic line is, if you don't like the weather, wait 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's the same thing here in New England. You guys stole it from us, by the way.
Yeah, whatever.
We were first.
I don't really care. I mean, I really don't care. All right. Well, listen, you can't walk away from presidential politics for too long, and that's it is what it is. But I want to start with a story you and I didn't get a chance to discuss, except very briefly last week, when we played some audio from a speech that Mark Zuckerberg gave, where he really sent a thinly veiled criticism to Donald Trump about building the wall. And there was a great article in The Hill this morning titled "Zuckerberg Facebook Increasingly in Political Spotlight." What I find interesting about that, and as I'm sure you're well aware, Mark Zuckerberg is a Republican. Whether he's a registered Republican or not, I don't know. But he is, and we know this to be fact because we've been able to, well, I shouldn't say we, but somebody went out and tracked his political donations, and they almost are exclusively to Republicans. I wonder if Donald Trump is going to turn him blue.
That is quite possible. There's a little bit of a, here we go, kerfuffle going on Facebook.
By the way, MSNBC's been using that word a lot lately.
I know. And you know what? We talk about some things, and a couple days later, I see Chris Matthews or Rachel Maddow or Chris Hayes covering it, and I look at my wife and I go, see, they're listening to the show.
That's right.
Maybe we should start using a whole new word and see if they pick it up also.
I just saw, just very quickly back to Prince, I just saw a crawl in the bottom of the MSNBC screen that said on last Friday, after he did the show Thursday in Atlanta on the way back, the reason that they stopped in Illinois is that he was unresponsive on the plane. So apparently he had gone unconscious on the plane. Now, again, this is just a report, and was unresponsive, and so they made an emergency landing in Illinois so he could get treatment. Just thought I'd share that very quickly.
Cool. So, there was I forget what I was saying. Oh, there was a group on Facebook that was calling for an investigation into the voters that were quote unquote disenfranchised in New York, and apparently their entire page has been banned from Facebook. So more news as that comes up.
Well, let me share something with you, because I was supposed to be on Ed Schultz's show Wednesday night, and unfortunately there were technical difficulties that barred my appearance. But I did a lot of research, because that's what we were going to talk about, before I went to do the interview. And this purging of voters is actually a very common practice in every state. And the way that it was explained, and I had read this explanation before, makes complete sense. And every state does this to make sure that their voter rolls are as accurate as they possibly can be. Now, I'm not saying that that's necessarily an endorsement of the process, but the process is they mail you during 2 election cycles. If you do not respond or do not vote within those 2 election cycles, they remove you from the voting rolls. And then if you show up at the voting place and your name isn't there, then that's on you. Because they do send you a notice that says, hey, if this is you and you are still living here and you still want to be considered a registered voter, all you need to do is sign this card and return the free postage paid card back to us. And so that was the reason the vast majority of people were removed from the polls. Now, everybody wanted to blame Catherine Harris, the former wench from Florida, and saying that people were just replicating her effort and blah, 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 blah. But there actually is precedent in every state to do it this way. Is there a better way to do it? I'm sure there is. Do I know what it is? Absolutely not. So this is what I did. I went to an independent commission here in the state of Michigan called the Michigan Election Reform Commission, or MERC, and asked their executive director, who has been a guest on my show many times, if what happened in New York was unusual. And she said, absolutely not. She gave me quite an education for about 45 minutes. I understood about 3 minutes of the 45. But this is a woman that leans decidedly left and really spent a lot of time defending New York.
Okay.
I'm just sharing with you what happened because the conspiracy theorists, once again, the Bernie bros, people like Richard Zombeck, just have trouble with the truth sometimes.
Easy there. Easy. We've talked about this. Okay?
Uh-huh.
So don't start getting personal here.
Oh, wait a minute.
Don't be a hillbilly.
Well, I'm not a hillbilly.
You just called me a Bernie bro.
Well, you kind of are.
No, I'm not. I'm not a Bernie bro.
Yeah, you are.
I'm nowhere near a Bernie bro.
Okay.
I like Bernie Sanders, and I don't like the Hillary campaign. I'm not saying I don't like Hillary, but I don't like the dirty politics and the snide, underhanded comments and the vitriol coming from both camps.
Thank you.
I now have
you just
to admit.
saved yourself. Thank you. It is coming from both camps.
I now have to admit, and I hold a special affinity to Bernie Sanders for a number of different reasons.
Can we, at this point, again have the conversation that Bernie has, I called it before the show, almost jumping the shark, that he has, by the way, he has admitted that his path to the nomination has become exceedingly difficult. He did admit that. Yet he continues with the vitriol. He continues with the name calling. He continues with the rhetoric. And you and I are both seeing more and more stuff in the media and on social media from rank and file voters that are pro-Bernie people that perhaps he's really gotten, I don't know, a little bit more curmudgeony the last few weeks, and it's kind of turning some people off.
Well, so here's the thing. Here's the problem that I have with the two different camps is I do see Bernie taking it up a notch a little bit. I don't think that vitriol is an accurate word to use to represent what's going on. I find that Clinton's PACs and campaign tend to stretch the truth a little more. I mean, here's the thing, right? Is he goes after her for her war record, for her record on Wall Street, for the bankruptcy bill, for the way she voted on things, for her paid speeches, and those are all fair game. Hillary Clinton makes him look like he's for the gun lobby, which isn't accurate at all, and questions his ability to get his facts straight, which isn't true at all. So I find her side to be a lot more unfair in their accusations, and Bernie Sanders' side to be a lot more fair in what they're going after her for. And I find the righteous indignation on her part to be a little disingenuous.
Well, you and I, again, are going to just agree to disagree. And if you were a caller, I'd be ripping you a new one right now. But you're not. You're my partner, so I'm not going to rip you a new one right now. I think Bernie has horribly exaggerated where Hillary's coming from. To say that she lacks judgment is ridiculous. She will be the first one, and continues to be the first one, to say that she regrets her vote on giving George W. Bush permission to go to war in Iraq in 2002. You don't atone for that, but admitting it, especially when you're being vilified for it, is, I think, at some level, a little courageous, because she puts herself out there. You and I have talked off air, and maybe we've even mentioned this on air, that the vast majority of people just don't care about the speech thing. They don't care about it. The email issue is not an issue within the Democratic Party in any way, shape, or form. The Benghazi Commission has been laughable for months now. And no matter what the report is or is not going to say is irrelevant, because we already know that, they admit it. They were doing it and continue to do it to make her look bad, not necessarily to prove anything. Not that Bernie's jumped on her on Benghazi, and of course he defended her on her emails because, well, remember, who cares about your damn emails? And so, with that said, I'll just go back to my original utterance, which was a lot of pro-Bernie people are beginning to get turned off by the rhetoric that he's using, the tone that he's using, and the anger that he is posturing with these days, because it's not bringing anything to the table. And, there was a report a couple days ago, I'm sure you saw it. This wasn't in the major media. In fact, I don't even know if it made the media at all. It may have. But the Democratic Party and those within the Democratic Party have met with Bernie and said to him, listen, the reality is you're probably not going to be the nominee. And you really need to tone down your rhetoric, because we have a general election to worry about. And we're going to need your supporters. As you know, this is not a conversation that they didn't have with Hillary back in 2008, right? They did. Because she was attacking Obama in a pretty major way. And at some point, she did dial it down.
Yeah, going back to your comment of we're going to agree to disagree, I have to say that I pretty much agree with almost everything you just said there.
No, I get concerned mostly because I have complete and utter respect for Senator Sanders. And as I've admitted, I voted for him in the Michigan primary. I would proudly do it again. I just want to be sure that we coalesce behind the candidate, as you and I have discussed and you agree with, when it comes time to do that. And at this point, that's looking like an ugly fight. And I hope I'm wrong.
Well, but here's the thing, Tony, is he actually polls better against Trump than she does.
Yeah, that's true. Anyway, let's move on to the Republicans. Have you noticed that I can't type Ted Cruz's last name properly? I wonder why that is.
Ted Cruz.
today, and then last time it was Ted Cruz. So must be some psychological issue. I don't know.
Maybe you just can't bring yourself to respecting the guy.
Well, there's a lot of truth to that. Well, why don't we go there before? Because we always spend so much time on Donald Trump. Ted Cruz, by the way, has admitted that he can't win the nomination on delegates. There's just no way that's going to happen, and he admitted that as well. It doesn't help him and again, he's a constitutional conservative. He's not looking for Democrats to vote for him, where Donald Trump is. And, Ted Cruz was on Glenn Beck's quote-unquote radio show, which isn't on the radio anymore, and talked to Glenn Beck about this spate of anti-LGBTQ, more specifically transgender pieces of legislation that are hateful, harming, and ridiculous. But between Glenn Beck and Ted Cruz, they really do set the record straight.
Yeah. So let's play that clip.
Make the case to people, this isn't because I hate transgendered people. I'm concerned about my daughter and my wife in a bathroom, not from the transgendered people, but from the inevitable
heterosexual pervert.
Yes, the heterosexual pervert that will use this.
Well, look, part of it, Glenn, this is not complicated to make the case. Most people know this intuitively. As you know, my daughters are 5 and 8. My 5-year-old knows the difference between boys and girls. You've got the Obama Education Department suing to try to force junior highs to let teenage boys shower with teenage girls.
Oh, my gosh.
That's crazy. It's just, that's not a reasonable position. It is simply crazy. And the idea that grown men would be allowed alone in a bathroom with little girls, you don't need to be a behavioral psychologist to realize bad things can happen, and any prudent person wouldn't allow that. And it is only the lunacy of political correctness. ESPN fired Kurt Schilling for making the rather obvious point that we shouldn't allow grown adult men, strangers, alone in a bathroom with little girls. That's a point anyone who is rational should understand.
I will tell you that we always hear from the left on gun control. If it will just save one person, then we should do it. If this would just save one little girl from being molested by a heterosexual pervert, we should do it. Let me switch.
And Glenn, look, I was Solicitor General of Texas for 5.5 years. I handled case after case after case of child molesters, of pedophiles, of people who abuse little kids. These are serious issues, and when you deal with people who are repulsive perverts and criminals, you need to, there are some bad people in the world, and we shouldn't be facilitating putting little girls alone in a bathroom with grown adult men. That is just a bad, bad, bad idea.
Ted Cruz should probably Ted Cruz should probably be neutered. I mean, I was talking about this with I think my wife the other day, because there was an article and I want to say it was in Daily Cause, but it was a guy who was born a woman and is now a man, and has been for a long time. And there are several pictures in the article, and it looks like a man. It looks like a young 30-something, actually fairly handsome young guy. And what he was saying was, and he lives in North Carolina, is he now, according to this law, has to use the ladies' room, right? So let's take Ted Cruz's example of sending his 5 and 8-year-old into a ladies' room, and 5 minutes later, this guy walks out of that bathroom. What's going to go through Ted Cruz's mind, who's so worried and afraid of perverts? And not to mention that guy who is now humiliated because he's immediately labeled a pervert because he's walking out of a ladies' room. Because for all intents and purposes, and by perception, this is a guy walking out of a ladies' room.
First of all, let me correct something that both Glenn Beck and Ted Cruz did. It's transgender people, not transgendered. Number one.
Yeah.
Number two, as Solicitor General, how many of these child molestation cases that he prosecuted were about heterosexual men dressing as women, going into the restroom and molesting a child? I'll bet you not one. Not one. And yes, a 5-year-old should know the difference between a boy and a girl. That's exactly the point you were making. If I have to use a restroom based on my gender marker on my birth certificate, it's going to scare the hell out of me as a 5-year-old if a man comes in. Now, it's none of my business if somebody has had reassignment surgery or not, right? None of my business at all. But to judge somebody as they are doing and calling heterosexuals that cross-dress perverts may or may not be true. In fact, I found out years ago that one of my dearest friends, in the privacy of his own home, liked to dress as a woman. That did not make him a pervert.
Right.
And just, people have certain sexual desires, and that's his.
Well, and sometimes it's not even a sexual desire. It's a desire to wear nice clothes.
Something like that. Whatever the reason is, doesn't matter what the reason is. It truly doesn't matter what the reason is. I just wish that they would stop this hateful dialogue about transgender people, because I have too many friends that are transgender. And it just sickens me. It sickens me. About 3 or 4 years ago in Tennessee, there was a transgender boy who wanted to take a girl to the prom. And the school wouldn't allow it. So the kids at the high school, with the help of parents, decided to have an alternate prom, which had 10 times the kids at it and ruined the traditional prom because only 14 couples showed up.
Yeah, I remember that.
So, they can play this game all they want. All right. Okay. Yeah, it does get exciting. Yeah, it sure does. I meant exhausting, but exciting in its own way. Listen, now that we're going to jump over to Ted Cruz, let me. I know you wanted to talk about Donald Trump. I'm sorry. I know you want to talk about Donald Trump. His utterance yesterday about being an entertainer. So let's go there, and then I really want to play the Harriet Tubman audio because he made such an ass out of himself with regard to that being about political correctness. But let's start with Donald Trump. And by the way, his new team of strategists saying that he's only projecting a profile.
Yeah, I want to play this clip, and then I've got something from Slate I want to read. So let's play that. Right. It's only about a minute long.
And some of the things you've said, and I'm not going to go into all the words, I don't think we have to, and some of the insults, but about women and Mexicans and Muslims, you can't unsay those things. So how do you convince them? Because, by the way, they've been listening to all the things you just said about jobs and the wall.
But I think it's about... Look, I did some things, and I've said some things in fun. I've said it as an entertainer doing The Apprentice, and you know how successful. I just saw Steve Burkhardt said they wanted to renew me for 2 years, and I didn't do it because of this, but a lot of that was entertainment. There is nobody that respects women more than I do. There is nobody that will take care of women's health issues better than I will. Hillary cannot do it, believe me. She doesn't have the strength, the energy. She will not be able to do it. And I think that women will be big fans. Look, they want to see security for our country, and I rate number one in every poll on security with the military. The military is endorsing me. I just got endorsed by the Border Patrol. 16,000 agents. They've never done that.
Okay, so first, let's just correct that, is that the military, top leaders in the military have said that they will not follow his orders. And in fact...
How about that the Border Patrol isn't the military?
Yeah, that and almost like 50 different military leaders and people from Homeland Security and the former and the present CIA director have both said that when it comes to Donald Trump, they won't be following his orders because most of what he's suggesting that he will order is illegal today. So this is I'm a little surprised that more people haven't picked up on this in the media, because here he is saying, I'm an entertainer and I've said a lot of things. I'm an entertainer. And this is what they have in quotes in a Slate article. And the title of this particular Slate article is Team Trump to GOP Leaders, : don't worry, it's all just an act, really, trust us. So this is a paragraph from that. It says, when he's sitting in a room, he's talking business. He's talking politics in a private room. It's a different persona, Paul Manafort said at a private meeting with RNC members at their spring summit. When he's out on stage, when he's talking about the kinds of things he's talking about on the stump, he's projecting an image that's for that purpose. He gets it. The part that he's been playing is evolving into the part that now you've been expecting, but he wasn't ready for because he had to first feed the first phase. So this is where things get really kind of confusing, because what they're saying is, oh, he's just been playing a role. He's just been acting. What does that say to the rubes that have followed this act and thought it was the real deal and are now going to be told, nah, I just told you guys that to bring you in? You know, it's a modern day P.T. Barnum. I mean, he was a carnival barker telling people what they wanted to hear, and now apparently his campaign is slowly letting the cat out of the bag that this was all just an act. And so what is...
But, you know, he's going to say, he said all along that as he wrapped up the nomination, or as he got closer to wrapping up the nomination, that he would sound more presidential. So that's going to be his excuse. And I'm not certainly endorsing the excuse. I'm just sharing it. I think that you're right, that the media is absolutely should be ashamed of themselves, beyond the fact that Prince passed away, and that seems to be everybody's excuse not to talk politics today. They should be all over this story.
Yeah, but here's one. I think there are a lot. This is what I think the reaction is going to be when everyone finds out that this was all just an act. Is the left is going to go, well, we knew it all along. I mean, he's a fake. He's a phony. He's full of it. People on the right are going to go, I can't believe he did this to us. Or they're going to say, well, no, he has to act presidential, but he meant everything he said, and he is going to build a wall and get rid of Muslims. He's just doing this so he can get into office, and he's fooling all those libtards into believing that, you know, he's actually going to do what they want, and we need to elect him because he needs to be in there, and now this is all an act, right? I mean...
Well, I want to go after what I think is a more egregious statement. He's in Pittsburgh the other day at a rally, and he tells a very much affected group of mostly working class blue collar men that he's going to bring the steel mills back to Pittsburgh. Never going to happen. Can't happen.
Right.
We live in a different world. We live in a different economy. The plants that were once employing 130,000, 140,000 people need to be torn down. they're not able to recondition them and use them. He can't bring back those kinds of jobs in those kinds of numbers. Yet the audience is screaming and yelling and applauding every freaking word that piece of crap has to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. I want to, can I quickly share, before we get to the Harriet Tubman thing, a funny story and then a very serious story. I get news feeds all day long, 24/7, from a variety of different sources. And I've been doing this for many, many years. That's why I get these news feeds. Passover, of course. We're in the middle of Passover, the beginning of Passover. And just saw a headline, didn't read the story. The headline reads the following: Passover the doobie. Top rabbi rules that marijuana is kosher for Jewish holiday.
Awesome.
But you got to love the headline, Passover the doobie.
Yeah.
So I just got a kick out of that. And a very serious story, and this is breaking. In Ohio, a shooter has killed 7 family members and is still at large. And they don't know if whoever the shooter is related to the family, has targeted that specific family, and is after other ones. But that is breaking as we speak, and it breaks my heart, and I hate these kinds of stories, Z. But here we go again.
Well, we couldn't get through this week without another shooting, Oh,
wow.
Yeah, and
and this is being reported by the local ABC affiliate. What city is this in? I'm not seeing it immediately, but oh man, I just hate these kinds of stories, and we all do. I mean, listen, there's no one that's sitting around going, "Gee, cool, another mass shooting." But
well,
anyway,
it's going to be another week of talking about gun laws, and then that week will go by and nothing will happen.
I'm sorry, that's where you're wrong. It won't be another week about talking about gun laws. This time they will ignore it. Just like the Uber driver that randomly shot and killed all those people here in Michigan. That conversation lasted about, 21 hours. And that was it. It's been over. So sadly, Z,
you're right.
They won't be discussing that for the next week.
It's the new normal.
Yeah, and sadly, that's very true. All right, well, listen, yesterday Donald Trump also decided that when the news that Harriet Tubman would appear on the $20 bill, his response was that it was all about political correctness, which means he has no idea the courage, the strength, and the massive historical significance of Harriet Tubman. So the Democratic National Committee put together a little video. Doesn't take long to listen to, but this is kids versus Donald Trump on Harriet Tubman.
She helps people get out of slavery.
I don't like seeing it. Yes, I think it's pure political correctness.
She helped other people get to safer places. She saved lives.
I would love to see another denomination, and that could take place. I think it would be more appropriate.
She went back from south and north 19 times, saving millions of people.
Maybe we do the $2 bill, or we do another bill.
Women have always been the underdog in life. Everyone takes women as just some home moms. They take care of your children, and that's all they do. And I think women are worth a lot more than that.
Right on, kid. Kid wins.
Yeah.
Kid won.
No, there's
Trump,
more than one there.
Trump 0.
Yeah, I mean, just it blows my mind. Maybe the $2 bill, maybe another denomination.
Well, Ben Carson said that too. Ben Carson said she should be on the $2 bill. So basically, they want to replace. They'd rather keep the slave owner and the guy that basically tried to kill all Native Americans and wipe them off the face of the earth.
Let me make this simple. Ben Carson is a white guy with dark skin. At least that's the way he acts and reacts to everything. If he's some champion of the African American community, they're in deep trouble. But I'll let people decide that for themselves. I just think that there are much better examples of black men than Ben Carson.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I tweeted yesterday, and actually this one got shared and liked a lot, more than I would have thought. And what I said was, Republicans are complaining about a black woman on a bill that's too big for most of their constituents to ever see, thanks to their policies.
Yeah, well, that got some pretty fantastic retweets, by the way. Yeah. All right, you had sent me, and you and I talked about opiate epidemic in this country. Certainly, there is a massive heroin problem in this country, and next week, as long as our schedule will work, we're going to have the executive director of Law Enforcement Against Prohibition on the program, retired Major Neil Franklin, who's a great guy. I've interviewed him before, to talk about something you and I discussed earlier this week, which is the legalization of recreational drugs and how it has worked in other countries, which is important. All right, with that said, Saturday Night Live always has their way of poking fun in a very realistic way. And, well, listen, I'm going to just let this speak for itself, because this is absolutely hilarious, but it's also scaringly very true.
Yeah, and there was a big kerfuffle about this also. So let's play that and then come back.
There we go, sweeties. I'm a mom, but that doesn't mean I don't like to have fun.
I drive a minivan, but I can let loose a little too.
I want to use heroin, but I also want to get stuff done. That's why I reach for Heroin AM, the only non-drowsy heroin on the market. So I can get jacked on skag and then get to work.
When I would call timeout to inject black tar heroin, there was almost a stigma about it. But with Heroin AM, I'm almost more alert than if I weren't on heroin.
Heroin use in America is steadily on the rise, but productivity among heroin users has remained stagnant.
That's why Heroin AM combines heroin with 5 milligrams of caffeine and a small pile of cocaine.
And now available in gummy bears, which you can melt down and inject.
Oh, yeah.
Side effects include it's heroin. So, all that stuff.
So now I can chase the dragon while I also chase this little guy. I'm gonna get ya.
Wow, this might be the first afternoon Mom doesn't need a nap.
Heroin AM, from the makers of Cocaine PM.
I went from nodding off to nodding yes to more heroin. Now who's ready for school?
Now, the best part about that is when she says, now who's ready for school? She's a bus driver.
She's driving a school bus, yeah. Well, and here's the thing, right?
And the other favorite part of that for me is when they show the little gummy bear and they're melting it in, and it's a little animated gummy bear, and they're melting it in a spoon.
Yeah.
I just get the biggest kick out of it.
Yeah, and I think they did a great job. And here's the thing: they're getting attacked for this ad because this is not a laughing matter, blah blah blah, and they're right, and it wasn't put out as a laughing matter. The fact of the matter is that since 2002, the rate of heroin associated deaths has increased by 286%, and there is a pain medication epidemic in this country. This country alone consumes 80% of the pain medication in the world. And, you know, people will say, well, this is a big country, blah, blah, blah. Well, the fact of the matter is that we have OxyContin. We have all kinds of pharmaceuticals being advertised on TV. And what happens to a lot of people is they get hooked on these opioids. The health insurance and the prices are exorbitant. And you can pick up heroin on the street for cheaper than a prescription of OxyContin. So people get hooked on the opioids and OxyContin in particular, and they do end up switching to heroin.
Well, I remember when the commercial for opioid instigated constipation medicine came out. I don't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but they call it OIC. And you came unglued when you saw that ad for the first time.
Yeah.
And you were like, they got a pill for freaking everything. I mean, you were really pissed.
Yeah. Well, this pharmaceutical company spending millions advertising a drug that treats the side effect of another overprescribed drug to basically a general audience. And that, you know, and opioids and heroin and things like that, one of the side effects is constipation. And so there are so many people in this country that are hooked on it that now they have a medication to clear up your constipation from the opioids that you're being overprescribed. I mean, it's gotten to the point where the pharmaceutical companies are forcing the medical industry to see pain as a vital sign. And it's not. It's a symptom. And to just say, oh, well, here, you know, you got some pain. Here, take this, and then you can do whatever you want. Go ahead and blow out your knee. Go ahead and F up your back. Go ahead and, you know, whatever. You won't feel a thing. Here you go. And in fact, you know, do it while you're driving a car or a school bus for that matter. And I hate to say it, Tony, but that happens more often than not.
Well, no, and you know, listen, I have had conversation with people that say my elderly parent went in for a knee operation or a hip replacement, whatever, and came out addicted to pain medication. And the problem is they hadn't felt that good in years. And so they go back to the doctor and they say, I'm still having problems with my knee or my hip.
Right.
Or the pain seems to be getting worse, and the doctor doesn't question a 75 or an 80-year-old woman and just keeps on upping that script to the point where they are not now only addicted, but numbed to their reality. You know, one of the reasons that we have pain is our body is sending us a message to be careful. Well, if we falsely remove that pain, then we're not careful. The occurrence or the reoccurrence of an accident greatly increases, and then again that cycle of dependency increases as well. And in fact, there was somebody that was doing some construction work at my sister's house, and I was talking to the guy one day. And sure enough, his mother broke her hip, ended up getting addicted to pain medication, was so messed up on the medication, fell and broke her hip again. They gave her more medication, and then finally, and he certainly believes that this was a direct correlation between the two, fell and died. Yeah. And he believes it was because she was so jacked up on her pain medication that she just could not control her own body. Who am I to argue with that?
Yeah, well, and this is the thing, and this goes through my mind all the time. I mean, think about this. 80% of the pain medication in the world is consumed here. And it says right on those prescription bottles too, should not operate heavy machinery or drive. So think about that. 80% of the pain medication consumed in this country. Think about that the next time you're driving, riding your bike, or crossing the street.
Well, let's take that disclaimer one step further because they've changed it. Do not drive or use heavy machinery until you know you can handle it.
Yeah.
That in and of itself is scary. Get us out of here, Z.
Yeah. Find us at tnztalk.com. Don't forget to support us, follow us, tweet us, Facebook us, on the interwebs, the intertubes, the internet, www.tnztalk.com. We do need your support to continue what we're doing here today.
Subscribe to the podcast. All right, that'll do it for us for today. All things being equal, we'll be back on Monday. In the meantime, we want to thank everybody at Blog Talk USA. In the meantime, Z, have a great weekend. I'm Tony Trupiano for Richard Zombek, and as always, we ask that you be well.
Oh yeah, can you feel it? Just over the credits, just riffing now. Words and chords. Not the poetry and the real thing, but not bad for an ad-lib. Not good, but... And it's not long enough, so just do a little bit more. And that's nearly done. That's the final credit there. That's the end.